Hello, I'm Afra Raymond. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to be examining the Invaders Bay mystery. If it sounds like a detective story, that's because maybe it is. Thank you. This time around, we're going to be discussing Invaders Bay, which is a 70-acre parcel of reclaimed land out on the Foreshore Highway behind the movie town and the Marriott Hotel. At the end of August 2011, the Ministry of Planning, which was then under Dr. Boyendradat Tiwari with the People's Partnership, published a request for proposals for the design, finance, and construction of various projects at Invaders Bay. Immediately there were protests, and the protests came from the JCC, they came from the Chamber of Commerce, they came from the Manufacturers Association, they came from the Transparency Institute, and the protests were founded around the fact that the procedure had lacked a certain degree of transparency. So Dr. Tiwari himself has told us, he's told the Parliament and he's told the national community, that the rules for governing, the rules for judging the applications were published a month after the closing date. Now, of course, any of you listening to this who knows about commercial matters and about legal matters and tendering and so on would recognize that the rules must be published in good time so that everybody could actually make sure their applications conform to the rules before they apply. You can't publish rules after a competition is over and call that competition fair. It's what the legal people will call voidable, and it renders the entire process illegal. What took place at Invaders Bay was illegal. It was improper, and I think it's been stopped by the current administration. The People's National Movement won the election on the 7th of September 2015. But the other interesting thing about Invaders Bay was this. After a little bit more struggle, we detected that what had taken place in an RFP was in fact a breach of the Central Tenders Board Act. And cutting a long story short, the JCC actually brought action against the minister to have the minister publish the legal advice he had obtained in relation to that point. Because the minister wrote us and told us that in fact his legal advice was that what he was doing at Invaders Bay conformed to the law. We didn't believe him and asked him to publish the legal advice, and he refused to do so, which raises the pregnant question. If you're a high public official and your actions have been called into question, and you go to get legal advice on the questions that that lobby group raises, and you get legal advice that confirms that what you are doing conforms to the law, why wouldn't you publish that? Every next week, the cabinet is publishing some legal opinion to support this or to support that they're doing. It doesn't matter if it's a PNM cabinet or UNC cabinet or it's Robbie. It's a matter of custom and practice, how government is practiced in this place. Why was the Invaders Bay legal opinion deemed to be secret? And they ended up claiming legal professional privilege. But at the end of the day, on the 14th of July 2014, they lost the case. The JCC won the case. And the High Court ruled, that was Justice Frank C. Prasad, the High Court ruled that in fact the Ministry of Planning and Sustainable Development was to publish the information that we had requested. The government immediately appealed, and that appeal process has been completed, and we are waiting for the judgment. In fact, I am reliably informed that the judgment should be published at some point in this month of October 2016. It's a very, very important point because the government was arguing for their part on the old-fashioned common law principle of what is called legal professional privilege, which is recognized at Section 29 of the Freedom of Information Act. And we were arguing for the privileges contained in Section 35 of the Freedom of Information Act, which in fact confer upon the public authority that has received an application for information, it confers on them the responsibility that irrespective of any exemption that they may have observed in relation to sections 24 to 34, they must, in the case of every application, carry out a public interest test. Section 35 mandates that they carry out a public interest test to weigh up whether, in fact, the information that is being requested, the publication of that information is in the public interest. And if, having carried out the public interest test, the thing is in the balance, as we say, 50-50 on the one hand is, but on the other hand that the onus is to publish, because this is a republic, these are public institutions funded by public money, which is our money, and the institutions exist to serve the public interest. The information is merely in the custody of those public institutions. The third point I want to make is about the current proposals, because of course it's a juicy piece of land, so you know it wouldn't just sit down there at mango trees and guava trees and so on. Somebody will have plans. When you have land, you have plans. And in fact, Minister of Finance Imbut disclosed those plans on the 8th of April 2016 when he spoke to the Parliament and gave us the mid-term budget review. And Minister Imbut told us about plans to have an international financial center, a convention center, and a 5-star luxury hotel on Invaders Bay, and signaled to us that that development, large scale as it was, would likely be conducted by Chinese interests. And that raises a very important and interesting wrinkle. One of the big concerns the PNM had expressed over the time that the People's Partnership advanced the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act was that in fact the new law, did not in fact treat properly and fully with the whole question of the disposal of land. Indeed, in the debate around the amendments to the public procurement law, Imbut said that he was in fact very careful and he wanted to guard that there would not be another Invaders Bay situation. And I want to say that there exists a wrinkle, and it's not a mere wrinkle, it's an engineered wrinkle. There exists a wrinkle in the Public Procurement Act at Section 7, subsection 2, which deals with government-to-government arrangements. And let's talk about what that wrinkle is. Section 7 originally said that any government-to-government arrangement sits outside of the public procurement law. And we protested that very strongly. So after much protest and negotiation, it was amended to read as follows. If an act of public procurement for the provision of goods, works, or services is taking place within a government-to-government arrangement, that provision of goods, works, or services would fit within the procurement law. Now that appears to be satisfactory, except if you observe closely, you will realize that it is silent on the question of the disposal of public property, which is exactly what Invaders Bay is. It's extremely valuable property. It's likely some of the most valuable property in the country that remains undeveloped. And what will take place at Invaders Bay will be a disposal of public property. And the way Section 7, subsection 2 is written of the procurement law, there is a gap in that lawfully, even with the new procurement law, the executive could enter a disposal of public property via a government-to-government arrangement on terms that were in fact not fully in the public interest. That is a danger that we are facing. And I asked Minister Imbut in one of my previous newspaper columns, I'm going to do so again now. Minister Imbut, would you kindly indicate to us whether or not you intend to do a government-to-government arrangement with those Chinese interests in respect of that development at Invaders Bay that in fact would allow Section 7, subsection 2 to be sidestepped and would allow you to dispose of public property without the proper oversight of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act. That is the question. On what terms are we entering that arrangement for that international financial center, convention center, and 5-star hotel at Invaders Bay? Those are the three questions. Question number 1, the impropriety and the illegality of the first process in terms of the late publication of the rules after the closing date, a month after the closing date. Number 2, the legality and the advisability of withholding and suppressing those legal opinions that supposedly supported what the state was doing, the Minister of Planning. And thirdly, what exactly is what and who exactly is who with relation to the new proposals for Invaders Bay as articulated by Minister of Finance Imbut. Who is who and what is what? Thank you. Well, I want to thank you for looking at that episode on Invaders Bay. You can follow the work at afraraymond.net, which is probably at the bottom of the screen now. Or if you'd like to get involved and get a little bit beyond reading about it, you can join an organization that is doing some of the work in these areas. You can join an organization like the Trinidad and Tobago Transparency Institute. You can join a companion organization that does similar work, Disclosure Today. Or you can take part in an organization that takes a longer-term structural view of these issues, the Constitution Reform Forum, which is debating and discussing how we could and should change our country's constitution for our benefit and the benefit of future generations. Thanks for your attention. I'm Afra Raymond. Thank you.